some foreign group coming to Britain and gradually taking over and saying to Britain, after a lot of conflagration, to the British, you can have 22% of your own country to live in. I do not think that the British population would have been overjoyed. I wouldn't have been overjoyed. But the Palestinians were, and still are, prepared to accept to live in 22% of their land if they're left alone in that area. Well, they are not going to be offered that. They are not offered this. They will not be offered it. They have not been offered it. There is a great conflict here between two ideas in the heart of Israel. One of them is the mini empire controlling what they control. Less than they did before, when they controlled Sinai, controlled more of Syria than they do now. But of course, they at many points controlled a sort of Lebanon as well, let us not forget. But the empire now controls the whole of Palestine, bits of Syria, a little bit of Lebanon, and of course a little bit of Egypt, which, you know, Israeli-Palestine, which is Gaza. So on the one hand, I think everyone that was speaking until now said this, and Arthur said it very clearly. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to give it up, and everything that they did since 1967, and I would say even before, in the preparation for 1967, was about grabbing the land and holding it at whatever price. Indeed, I think Alberto is right, at whatever price. They don't care about the price. This is a principle. And then they've got this idea that Israel is a Jewish democracy, which is, I think, an oxymoron. There is no Jewish democracy more than there is a Muslim democracy or a Christian democracy. This is an oxymoron. And they want us to believe and support it. And they want you, Jews everywhere, to be the paymasters, the political supporters of this racist dream. But those two dreams are contradictory. Can't you see that you cannot have a Jewish democracy and an empire? So they themselves, since 1967, have been moving on two tracks which are never to meet. And they cannot decide what they want. So for you guys and for the American Jews, etc., they're talking about a Jewish democracy, two states, and so on. In reality, they're making everything impossible. Yeah? So this kind of doublespeak, which, as I pointed out, goes back to Herzl, is exactly a hallmark of modern Zionism. And this is what will bedevil and has bedeviled any two-state solution from happening. Now, what other solutions are there? Let's say the two-state solution has been made impossible by Israel, which I believe, as an Israeli, I've seen it happen from day one after 1967. The plan has worked, and when they thought it doesn't work so well, they built a wall. You know, the life of Palestinians since 1948 has been one long Nakba. The Nakba is not finished, or it hasn't even started in 1948. It started in 1926, when 26 Palestinian villages were evacuated on one day in the Lower Galilee. So what we're talking about is a forced evacuation by a colonial regime, which I cannot imagine that a lot of people in this audience, or the many others that are not here today but are JFP members, normally would support. Yeah? So if you're supporting a two-state solution, in the end, you're supporting a Zionist Israel. A Zionist Israel is, well, the leopard will not lose the spots. That leopard is not losing any spot and not losing any sleep over there. It's staying the same leopard throughout. And I have to conclude now. So what kind of solutions could there be which are not a two-state solution? Well, there could be as a number of the speakers said, a total or partial expulsion. And Ephraim described why he thinks it's not possible. I wish I could join you in saying it's not possible. It's been possible in Kosovo, in many other places. These things happen. They still happen. The Americans might not like it, but can you see Obama this year or next year or the year after acting against Israel? Well, I can't quite see that. So it's possible that a mass expulsion will happen. Now, actually, as we speak, and some of you would know that, because it was put on the net last night, the Israelis are doing a mass expulsion exercise this weekend. I can see that some people have read about it and know about it. So they're planning. This is a plan which needs to be activated. And Arnon Sofer, that was mentioned by Ephraim, and those people are actually behind that. You know, which people to expel, which villages, where exactly, and they have, you know, plans prepared.
Do you mean from Israel or from the West Bank?
From Israel and from the West Bank.
Oh.
Of course. It's, they have a problem with Gaza. You know, what are they going to do about Gaza? Yeah? But from Israel and the West Bank, there are plans. And I would not be surprised at the plans for Gaza as well. What are the solutions? Well, there can be the continuation of the status quo. Well, I would say, no, it can't continue. I don't have time to talk about it. It may come up in the questions. And there is a solution, which at the end is left on the table, which has a number of variants, which as an Israeli Jew, I support, because I don't see any other solution which is humane, liberal, democratic. And either you call it a secular democratic state, or you call it a number of regions with autonomy coming together in a federation. Yeah. You know, these things are for negotiations. The details of coming together as human beings with equal rights are up for negotiations. And if, you know, who will win? Will it be Mr. Botha or will it be, you know, Nelson Mandela? You know, there will be negotiations. There is a weak party and a strong party. But if, as Jews and Israelis that believe in equal rights, in democracy, and also do not want that kind of scenario that Ephraim painted so well graphically and with images, of a demographic democracy, Jewish democracy, I mean, a demographic Jewish democracy which is based on forcing the minority of the population to stay a minority. For example, part of the negotiations now ongoing or not ongoing, of course, is the expulsion of the triangle Palestinians into a Palestinian state, which of course nobody asked them about it, and they won't agree if they were asked. Why? In order to have more, well, a higher number of Jews, because all the others, I think Ephraim has proven to us that all the other methods of increasing the percentage of Jews are now at, the only thing that can save Zionism is a massive, sustained, and continued campaign of anti-Semitism in the United States. The figures are there. And of course, Zionism was always supported by anti-Semitism in different places. That's why Zionism is never offered to fight anti-Semitism. We need to fight anti-Semitism because we are Jews in societies where anti-Semitism would attack us first. Yeah, but they don't need to fight anti-Semitism. The great hope, and read Haaretz and Yediot Achronot and Ma'ariv, and you see that the only hope of Zionism is now maybe the Americans will start a proper anti-Semitic movement. Well, good. You know, if that's your best hope, then you've got a problem. Because I think it is true. You don't need to live in a Jewish state to be safe. The American Jews have proven it. The British Jews have proven it. They don't want a Jewish state in America. They're quite happy. They are the strongest group of, the strongest minority in the world, the American Jews. They lack for nothing. And therefore, they are not also afraid of anti-Semitism, and there isn't indeed serious anti-Semitism either here or there. Serious anti-Semitism, you know what it is. I know what it is. It destroys my family. And therefore, I want to conclude. What, as Jews, do we need to do? This is, and I have to say, I would be much happier if there was a Palestinian on this panel, because at least if there was one Palestinian to 4 Jews, that would be an improvement. Because after all, we're not dancing tango without the other party. You need 2 for tangoing. And I suggest that this is something that, as an organization, you need to consider. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm suggesting that not having Palestinians in discussing the future of Palestine is an odd thing. What as Jews should we do? And this is my conclusion. I think we should make sure that we are not pulled into Zionist machinations, into Zionist propaganda, for, at the same time, arguing for Jewish democracy, meaning not allowing the Palestinians, self-determination of any kind, not allowing the Palestinians to have human rights, civil rights, property rights, cultural rights, and I could go on. And at the same time, arguing for 2 states in some kind of, on an abstract level that does not relate to anything, and was indeed the big fig leaf. The peace process was a fig leaf for expanding the settlements. These 2, the more we argue about 2 states, the more the settlements are expanded. The 2 graphs are the same graph, basically. And so I'm saying to you, as a Jew, as an Israeli, and not least as a human being who wants to live in peace in Palestine. Indeed, I want to be able to live in my country, in my language, meet my friends, Palestinians and Israelis, in equality. You can help it. You can help it like we helped the blacks in South Africa in the 70s and 80s by actually making Israel to be the pariah that it has become, and by clarifying that this kind of regime, this kind of barbarity, this kind of brutality is not acceptable to Jews or to human beings. Thank you.